Wednesday night was the first mathematical chance for the Orioles to clinch the AL East in 2023. And although they weren't able to do it, they held up their end of the bargain, beating the Nationals and dropping their magic number to 1. How did they do it? I'll recap it all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And today is Thursday, September 28th, 2023, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles' 5-1 victory over the Washington Nationals on Wednesday night that got the Orioles within just one win of clinching the AL East. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including Adley Rutschman staying hot, the bullpen staying perfect lately, and Jorge Mateo swinging a little bit of a hotter bat. Then, speaking of bats being back, the Orioles got Ryan Mountcastle back. We'll talk about that, how he will affect the lineup and the roster moving forward into the postseason. And finally, a little preview of tonight's game against the Red Sox, because this is the one where if the O's win, they've got the division. Could it be Clinchmas? Tell you what the O's need to do to make it happen coming up at the end of the pod. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So we start today with an Orioles victory. Final score from Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Wednesday night, with me in attendance, getting my record back over 500 to 9-8 on the season. But the final score was Orioles 5 and the Nationals 1 as the O's complete the quick 2-game sweep over the Nats in that series and win all 4 games against the Nationals this year, with the Nats only scoring one run. That's right, 1 run in 36 innings of baseball against the O's this season. With the win, the Orioles picked up win number 99. They are 99-59 now in the AL East. They remain 2.5 games ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays. But the big number is the Orioles win dropped their magic number from 2 to 1, and all eyes were on Rays Red Sox game 2 of 2 at Fenway Park on Wednesday night. Unfortunately, unlike Tuesday where the Red Sox went down big and got back into it, cut it back to a 1-run game late before ultimately losing, the Red Sox essentially did not show up for Wednesday night's game. The Rays beat the Sox 5-0 on Wednesday, meaning although the O's got 1 game closer, they could not clinch the division on Wednesday night, but drops the magic number to 1, and they can clinch it tonight. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from the Orioles' 5-1 win over the Nationals on Wednesday. And the first thing you need to know is Adley Rutschman is red hot in the month of September. And what a time for Rutschman, the Orioles' young franchise centerpiece, to have his best month, to be swinging his best bat in September when it matters most. Adley DHing on Wednesday night, goes 2 for 4 with a home run, 3 RBIs, and a walk as well. He had 2 hard hit balls, and Adley got the scoring started in the 3rd inning after Adley had really crushed a ball to the track in right center field off of National starter Patrick Corbin in the 1st inning, really just missing a 2-run shot on a ball that he hit 102 off the bat. And after that, he said, all right, I'm getting my homer next time. And the next time he came up with a runner on in the 3rd inning, Rutschman blasts one into the Orioles bullpen in left field. 105 off the bat, traveled 395 feet for his 20th home run of the season. 2-run shot off Corbin, put the Orioles up 2-0 in the 3rd. He would add a single in the 5th, and after a strikeout in the 6th, he walked in the 8th as well for the O's. Just another great game for Rutschman. He's swinging the bat incredibly well in September. Adley Rutschman now, in 108 plate appearances in the month of September, is hitting .287 With a 407 on base and a 529 slugging percentage, his 936 OPS in September is by far his best of any month here in the 2023 season. Adley saving his best for last. Second thing you need to know from the Orioles win over the Nats on Wednesday night is that Austin Hayes had really the other big offensive game for the Orioles, but for him, it was kind of breaking out of a slump a little bit. Now, Hayes did have one hit in the Orioles 1-0 win on Tuesday night over Washington, but before that game, Austin Hayes was in a little 0 for 13 slump here late in September. Wasn't swinging the bat super well, but with the lefty Patrick Corbin on the hill, the Orioles go to Austin Hayes in the leadoff spot in Wednesday's lineup. First time in a while at this point, really, that the Orioles had seen a left-handed starter. It'd been almost 2 weeks since they did. And he goes out there, looks good in the leadoff spot, and gets himself on base 3 times. That is what the Orioles are looking for out of Austin Hayes in that spot. And he started the game with an absolutely ripped single up the middle, 109 off the bat, walked in the third, struck out in the fifth, but then singled again in the sixth, and was hit by a pitch in the eighth inning. Actually reached base 4 times out of 5 in this game. And luckily, the big thing for Austin Hayes is he was hit by a pitch and was not injured, stayed in the game, and seems to be okay. But if you're not counting the hit by pitch, if you're looking for really just times that he's been on base 3 times or more, you have to go back to September 6th for the last time he did that. And you have to go back even earlier in the season for the last time he reached base 4 times in one game. But for Hayes, this was really big, and you could kind of see it coming, right? Because you have a left-handed starter out there who they haven't faced in a while. And it was specifically Patrick Corbin, who, if you remember, back in June of 2022, Corbin started the game in Camden Yards when Austin Hayes hit for the cycle last season against the Nationals. You knew he was ready to swing the bat well again on Wednesday, and that is what he did. Third thing you need to know from the O's 5-1 win on Wednesday is that Jorge Mateo, quietly, very quietly, is swinging a much better bat in the month of September. Now, he's still not April Jorge Mateo for multiple reasons. One, the production still isn't there. And two, remember in April, he was playing every day. Now he's playing very, very sparingly. But when Mateo does get in there, and it's mostly going to be against lefties, but because the O's didn't see a lefty for like 2 weeks, he did get a couple of starts against righties as well. But Mateo in there against the lefty, playing shortstop, batting ninth, and he goes 1 for 2 with a single and a walk in this game, picked up his 30th stolen base as he stole third in the game, scored a run, one of the 5 Orioles runs as well. And if he can just get himself on base, I mean, this is what we talk about all the time. This is kind of beating a dead horse at this point. If he can just get on base, he truly can change the game. But I liked what I saw from Mateo. I mean, he hit a ball hard in the second inning. It was a fly out to the warning track in right with first and third and 2 outs that ended the inning. But he hit it 96 off the bat, got a good swing on a pitch and drove it the other way. He drew a 4-pitch walk to lead off the 5th inning, came around to score. He put down a good sac bunt in the 6th inning. And then he absolutely ripped a single in the 8th inning that was 106 off the bat that he hit the other way. So really, I felt like it was 4 really good-looking plate appearances for Jorge Mateo out of the 9-hole on Wednesday. And incredibly quietly for Mateo. Now, it hasn't been a lot of chances that he's had in September, right? He's played very sparingly. But when Mateo's been out there, he's hitting .296 with a .406 on-base percentage in the month of September. I mean, it's a .739 OPS. He's also 4 for 5 in stolen bases in the month as well. He's still not going to get himself to an everyday spot, but he's quietly being more and more productive. And we know at this point, the fact that they've held on to him this long, Jorge Mateo is going to be on the Orioles playoff roster. Now, if they face a lefty, he could maybe get a start in the postseason, but more than likely he doesn't start any playoff games. But he's there to come off the bench, defensive replacement if you need. More so, he's going to be a pinch runner late in those games because that speed is a factor. But it's good to know that, hey, at least Mateo's bat looks somewhat alive in September. And at the very least, you never know what can happen in a postseason game. Sometimes these pinch runners have to end up hitting later in games. If they stay in the game, it stays tied, goes to extras, whatever it may be. And it's good to know that at least at this point, he is no longer a black hole at the plate. He is no longer just taking pitches, whiffing pitches, not hitting at all. And you can at least expect a little bit of production in the few plate appearances potentially he could have in the postseason. Fourth thing you need to know from the O's win to pick up the sweep on Wednesday night is that Grayson Rodriguez was solid. Not bad, not amazing, just really solid, it felt like, for the Orioles. Grayson in this one goes 5 2/3 innings of 1-run ball, allowing 6 hits. He struck out 5 and did not walk anyone. No homers, as well as the righty threw 87 pitches in this game and allowed only 5 hard hit balls by Nationals hitters. Now, for Rodriguez, it was a tiny bit surprising that he was pulled when he was. I do kind of get it why the Orioles made the move in the 6th inning. He had given up a run in the 5th and then got out of it. That run in the 5th was the first run the Nats had scored against the Orioles all season. O's offense got him 2 back, bottom 5, so it put the O's up 4-1. He goes out there in the 6th, puts runners on 1st and 3rd with 1 out with a couple of hits. Does get Joey Meneses, the righty, to pop out in foul territory for the 2nd out. But with back-to-back lefties coming up after that in Luis Garcia and Dom Smith, both guys who can do damage, Brandon Hyde had Danny Coulombe ready, and he went to him, and I thought it was the right move. You have a chance with a 3-run lead. Hey, he's at 87 pitches. You'd love him to finish the 6th, but maybe you can take a little bit of stress off his arm. You have a very rested bullpen because, remember, Saturday you get John Means pitching into the 8th. Sunday you get Kyle Gibson pitching into the 8th. Monday you get an off day, and Tuesday you get Kyle Bradish throwing 8 innings. So the bullpen's basically been as rested as it's been all year. So it's nice to get some guys in there. Coulombe came in, got a pop out, did his job, and the bullpen kind of took it from there for the Orioles. So I thought that was just an impressive job by Rodriguez. Remember, his last start in Cleveland was just a weird one. Like, he finished 5 innings and allowed only 2 runs. It's not like it was terrible or anything, but Cleveland just hit so many foul balls, and he couldn't get the strikeout. He couldn't get his whiff pitch, that he ended up throwing 98 pitches in 5 innings and had to be done after 5. It was just a really weird start his last time out. So nice to see Grayson kind of be a lot more efficient, pitch into the 6th, and give the Orioles a chance to win this game, which they did. And he had more swing and miss stuff. I mean, it was still only 10 whiffs on 50 swings. It's not great. Most of them came from the fastball. He was very heavy once again, throwing the 4-seam fastball against this Nationals lineup. It wasn't his best stuff, but again, he looked good. And here's the thing. I mean, shout out to Jacob Calvin-Meyer of the Baltimore Sun, who tweeted out this stat after Rodriguez left the game and his line was finalized on Wednesday. Here are the top 3 ERA leaders among qualified pitchers, so it's going to be starting pitchers, in the American League since the All-Star break. Number 1 in the entire American League since the All-Star break is Kyle Bradish with a 2.40 ERA. Number 2 is Grayson Rodriguez with a 2.58 ERA. And number 3 is the most likely Cy Young winner, Garrett Cole, with a 2.60 ERA. That is how good Bradish and Rodriguez have been for the O's since the All-Star break. They've got a true 1-2 punch headed to the playoffs. Grayson Rodriguez is certainly part of that punch. And the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 5-1 win over the Nats on Wednesday that dropped the magic number down to 1 is that the bullpen stayed perfect. I have said it basically every episode since Monday. When this bullpen gets rest, it's still not the best bullpen in baseball, but is a serviceable, good bullpen to take into the postseason, even without Felix Bautista. Now, if they have Felix, it's a really good bullpen. But still without him, they are showing that if they could just get out from under themselves like they were just drowning for those 17 straight games, finally get 3 consecutive really long starts, you get the off day on Monday, you get to reset, and guess what? The Orioles bullpen has not allowed a base runner since Friday, since David Fry of the Guardians hit the walk-off double in the 9th inning off Yennier Cano in Friday night's loss. That is the last base runner that the Orioles bullpen has allowed. Not last hit, not last run, last base runner they have allowed. The Orioles bullpen in the games Saturday and Sunday against Cleveland, and then Tuesday and Wednesday against the Nationals, retired all 24 batters they have faced in that stretch. Let me say it again. They have retired all 24 batters. That is 8 perfect innings from the bullpen in that time. And on Wednesday night, it was a combination of 3 guys who are kind of in different spots in this Orioles bullpen. It started with Danny Coulombe, who I mentioned, came in, got Grayson out of the jam in the 6th, then threw a 1-2-3 7th with a strikeout. Danny Coulombe, I think, is still, You could argue whether him or Cionel Perez is currently Brandon Hyde's go-to left-hander, but either way, he is a guy who's going to pitch in high leverage in the postseason. The Orioles and Brandon Hyde do trust him. Then Jacob Webb got the 8th inning. That was the best Jacob Webb has looked in a while. 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts. Webb, a guy who for a while there looked like a postseason lock when he first came over to the O's. Now he's more so teetering on whether or not he'll be in the playoff bullpen. That appearance was big for his chances and could maybe rocket him up to more high leverage spots for the O's. And then in the 9th, you saw Tyler Wells, who returned to the Orioles over the weekend after just what has been such a weird season. Amazing first half as a starter. Comes out in the second half, terrible for 3 starts, looks exhausted. O's send him to AA. He starts for a while, still can't get right. They move him to the bullpen in AAA, still takes a while to get right. And they finally just call him up last Friday because they needed him arm. And then he gives the Orioles an inning and a third scoreless in relief last Friday. And you're thinking, oh, the stuff is looking better. And then he comes out there, and it wasn't a save situation, but it was a 5-1 game. It's not completely over in the 9th inning. And Tyler Wells, facing 3-4-5 in the order, gives the Orioles a 1-2-3 9th to close out that win on Wednesday night. And I'm not saying Tyler Wells has a chance to fill in his Orioles closer if they're still without Felix Bautista for the entirety of the postseason. What I am saying is 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts. I mean, that at bat against Joey Meneses, he made Meneses look silly in that AB. That was kind of close to the Tyler Wells we saw out of the bullpen in 2021 as a rookie. I was really impressed from what I saw from Tyler Wells. 3 whiffs on 5 swings. He threw 2 incredible changeups and got swings and misses on both of them. He threw in the fastball, the slider, and the change. Fastball velocity was solid. It sat 93. He was up to 95. I just liked what I saw from Tyler Wells. I don't know if I'm ready to put him in like a go-to high leverage spot, but I think he's at the point where he can make this postseason bullpen and make this Orioles team better. He's retired all 7 batters he's faced out of the pen since he returned to the Orioles. That bullpen just needed rest. I try to tell you, it just needed rest, and look what happens when they are finally getting that rest. And the Orioles beat the Nats 5-1, sweep the 2-game series, get to 99 wins, and get the magic number down to 1. And they also got some help on the roster back on Wednesday as they finally activated Ryan Mountcastle from the injured list. But despite a lefty pitching for the Nats, he was not in the Orioles starting lineup on Wednesday night. I'll tell you why that was, when Mountcastle will truly return to the lineup, and what he could give to the Orioles down the stretch. That is coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Gametime. I've talked about Gametime a lot on this podcast, but it's getting close to playoff time, and you can look for those playoff tickets on Gametime as well. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, including the Orioles, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite part about the Gametime app is the flash deals. You open the app, and they know what tickets you like to buy. They know I'm looking for Orioles tickets. The O's are right there on the front page, and they've got these flash deals for the best deal at the last minute. That's the best part. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Again, I've done it before. You can be right outside Utah Street, go on the app, buy the tickets. They come right to your app, right on your phone. Don't have to find them anywhere else. You just turn it around, boom. It's scanned by someone, and you walk through the gate, and you enjoy some Baltimore Orioles baseball. That's how easy it is at Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the Orioles take down the Nationals 5-1 on Wednesday night. And again, the magic number is now 1 for the O's. And they also got some reinforcements back before Wednesday's game as Ryan Mountcastle was activated off the injured list for the Orioles. According to the O's beat court, said he looked good in BP again before Wednesday's game, and the Orioles decided to activate him. Now, Mountcastle has been out since September 13th when he left that game against the Cardinals with a left shoulder issue. They called it a left shoulder AC joint inflammation that he left with. They waited about a week to see if he was getting better. At first he was, then he wasn't. So after a week of not playing, they finally did put him on the injured list last Wednesday. It was retroactive to 3 days before, which meant his 10 days on the 10-day IL were up on Wednesday. And Brandon Hyde did talk about it before Tuesday's game, said he thinks Ryan Mountcastle is close, but didn't think that, he would be 100% ready to be activated Wednesday. But the O's did make the move. Now, the interesting part of it was they make the move Wednesday, and you're thinking, all right, this is a good time to make the move. He's healthy. He's looking good in BP. And the Orioles are facing a left-handed pitcher in Patrick Corbin. Mountcastle, who has crushed lefties over his career, and especially this year has been absolutely dominant against left-handed pitching. You're saying, perfect. You activate him. Mountcastle's back in the lineup tonight. And then he wasn't, and he did not appear in the Orioles' win on Wednesday night. But when you look at what the corresponding move was, you actually get a look into why they made the move on Wednesday. Now, the Orioles, I talked about it, they had basically one of two options. You either send down McKenna or you send down Heston Kjerstad. They decided to option Ryan McKenna back to AAA Norfolk. Now, I'm not sure how much playing time Kjerstad's really going to get down the stretch now with Mountcastle and O'Hearn back on the roster and Aaron Hicks hitting well and Santander being there. And there's just not a lot of space for Heston Kjerstad at the moment. But this gets interesting because they made the move Wednesday, but what Brandon Hyde talked about was, hey, Mountcastle won't be in the lineup tonight, but he will be in the lineup, he said, Thursday night when the Orioles face another lefty in Chris Sale of the Red Sox. You can expect tonight here on Thursday, Mountcastle to be starting. But because they made the move Wednesday, you send down Ryan McKenna. 10 days from Wednesday, remember, there's the rule. You have to stay down as a position player in the minors for 10 days before you can be called back up. 10 days would still allow Ryan McKenna to be put on the ALDS roster because that's 10 days away without having to miss out on the first postseason series. Now, I'm not saying the Orioles are fighting tooth and nail to get Ryan McKenna on the postseason roster. I'm not sure that's the case, but they will have a decision to make once they get through these final few games. And really, I do think the O's are going to carry 14 position players on the playoff roster. And I think it's going to come down whether you want to carry Heston Kjerstad's bat to basically be a pinch hitter potentially, or carry Ryan McKenna to be a defensive replacement and a pinch runner. That's going to be the final decision for the Orioles hitters on the playoff roster. And because you make the decision Wednesday, you allow McKenna to be called back up. If they hadn't activated Mountcastle until Thursday and option McKenna would not been able to come back up in time, which means he would have not been eligible for the playoff roster. And again, I'm not saying he's definitely going to be on there, but what the move means is, hey, let's just activate Mountcastle now, send McKenna down. Even if we can't use him tonight, we know that allows us to make the decision, if we want to, in 10 days, to put Ryan McKenna as a defensive replacement pinch runner guy, extra outfielder on our playoff roster. That's why they made the decision, but didn't start Mountcastle. But again, he's going to be back in there tonight against Chris Sale. I mean, we know how well he's hit since returning from the vertigo. He gives the Orioles protection for their left-handed hitters in their lineup. I talked about this on Wednesday's episode, but when there's a lefty starter out there, the Orioles are exposed a little bit because, if they do leave guys like Ryan O'Hearn in the lineup, you've got like Gunnar Henderson, Ryan O'Hearn, Cedric Mullins in there. And then also you have that space at the top of the order where you include Adley Rutschman and Anthony Santander. And although both of those switch hitters do hit well from the right side, if the games are at Camden Yards, their power is zapped a lot from the right side because of the big wall in left field. So you'd much rather pitch to them when they're hitting from the right side than the left side when they are at Camden Yards. You need Ryan Mountcastle as that lefty masher to kind of be in the middle of all those lefties and switch hitters to kind of give them some protection so a good lefty reliever can't come in and just like dice through the middle of the Orioles order. I think that is the biggest thing that Mountcastle is going to bring them. I don't know if he'll play every day down the stretch, but I think as long as he's healthy, Ryan Mountcastle is going to be on the Orioles postseason roster and is going to try to help them win a World Series. And hopefully we can see Mountie crushing Chris Sale once again in tonight's game. And that's where I want to finish off today's pod because the O's couldn't get the full thing to happen. Unfortunately, the Rays did win on Wednesday night. So despite the Orioles win, they didn't clinch quite yet, but they cut the magic number in half, down from 2 to 1, which means tonight's game, that could be clinchmas. O's and Red Sox going to preview game 1 of this 4-game set and get you ready for what could be a very, very magical night at the ballpark. That's coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And if you think tonight is clinchmas for the Orioles, you can go on the app and take Orioles money line over the Red Sox. I think tonight could be the night. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So after the Orioles get the sweep of the Washington Nationals in the 2-game series, they have dropped their magic number to 1. And tonight is the night the Orioles could finally clinch the AL East and pick up win number 100 here in 2023. And it's going to be a big one. I'll preview in a second, but you should know that, if you can't be at the ballpark, maybe you can't watch on TV, you can listen to every single pitch of the Orioles' hometown radio broadcast of tonight's Game 1 against the Red Sox with the SXM app through SiriusXM. Just download the app and search Orioles. But it will be O's and Red Sox tonight. And again, this Red Sox team didn't give the O's any help earlier this week. In the quick 2-game series at Fenway against the Rays, Sox lost 9-7 on Tuesday and lost 5-0 on Wednesday, which did not allow the Orioles to clinch on Wednesday night. The Rays win both games. They stay barely alive in this division race at this point. Now, the Rays are off here on Thursday night. They do finish the season with a 3-game series in Toronto against the Blue Jays Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Hopefully, those games won't matter to the Orioles at all, but if they do, that's who they play. Blue Jays team fighting tooth and nail to get one of those final AL wildcard spots at the moment. But the magic number is 1, which means you need combined 1 of Orioles wins or Rays losses. Rays have 3 on the road in Toronto. Orioles have 4 at home against the Red Sox, who are completely out of the race. That 4-game series starts tonight. And honestly, the best time and the best way to clinch this is tonight because the Rays are off, which means you're not scoreboard watching, and there's no situation where the Rays lose and their game ends 20 minutes before the Orioles game does, and technically the Orioles have clinched before they even have a chance to win a game and really do it in a fun fashion. Now, a clinch is a clinch. We want the AL East no matter what, but the most exciting way to do it for the fans would be to do it tonight in Game 1 against the Red Sox. And it's Game 1 of 4. And honestly, luckily for the Orioles, the Game 1 starter, as I mentioned already, will be Chris Sale for the Boston Red Sox. And the reason I say that, despite, Chris Sale, he's had a great past in baseball, and he's dealt with some injuries and other things again this year, but he's got a respectable 4.42 ERA and about 98 innings of work here in 2023 for the Red Sox. But Chris Sale, in 3 starts against the Orioles this year, has a 13.50 ERA. The O's have mashed him. Go back all the way to the second day of the season, April 1st at Fenway Park. Orioles got him for 7 runs on 7 hits over 3 innings, 6 Ks, 2 walks, a hit batter, and 3 home runs. Then April 24th in Baltimore, Sale goes 5 innings, allowing 5 runs on 9 hits. And for the first time in his career, he did not strike out a batter in a start and walked 1. And then September 9th, back in Boston, Orioles got him again. 7 runs, 6 of them earned on 6 hits over 4 innings, 5 Ks, 2 walks, and 2 homers allowed to the Orioles offense by Chris Sale. Yeah, again, that is 12 innings of work and 18 earned runs allowed to the Orioles offense, including 5 long balls. The O's love to hit against Chris Sale. And going up against him will be Dean Kramer, who it's been a little bit of a struggle for Dean Kramer in September. He's had 1 good start and 3 really, really shaky ones. And this start against Boston with the division title potentially on the line could be the start that swings Dean Kramer's playoff position either way, because this will be his last regular season start. If he pitches poorly, I think we're going to see Kramer in the playoff bullpen. If he pitches well, he's right there neck and neck to get a postseason rotation spot. This is huge for Dean Kramer as well. Now, he has pitched twice against the Red Sox this year. They were both in April. He did pitch in that April 1st game going up against Chris Sale, and he was pretty bad too. 3 innings, 5 runs, 6 hits, 3 Ks, a walk, and 2 homers. And he also went up against Chris Sale April 24th in Baltimore. He was better in that one, but still not great. 5 2/3, 4 runs, 7 hits, 5 Ks, a walk, and 2 more home runs. So not as much as the Orioles have gotten to Chris Sale, but the Red Sox have gotten to Dean Kramer this year as well. So could be a high-scoring affair in Baltimore tonight. But the O's pretty much have the entire bullpen available. You could argue maybe Danny Coulombe not available because he got 4 outs on Wednesday, and maybe not Tyler Wells because I don't know if they want to pitch him on back-to-back days at this point. But everybody else in that pen is rested, ready to go, trying to win this division tonight. Again, the best time to do it is when the magic number's 1 and the other team is off. Just go win your game in front of your home crowd. I'll be in the ballpark once again. Let's get Clinchmas going. Let's win this AL East title for the first time in 9 years. It's going to be a party in Baltimore. And remember, if they don't do it tonight, they're still going to have 3 more chances over the weekend to just either get 1 win or 1 Rays loss. But the best way to do this is going to be to do it tonight against the Red Sox, get it out of the way, and you can relax over the weekend. Let's go get 100 wins. Let's go get a division title tonight. Let's go Baltimore. Let's get that magic number down to 0 and see a huge celebration in the Charm City. But whether or not they clinch the division or they want to wait until the weekend, I'll be back with you tomorrow with another episode of the podcast. I will be previewing the remaining 3 games of the regular season and this series between the Orioles and the Red Sox. And hopefully we'll be talking about the AL East champion Baltimore Orioles coming up on tomorrow's episode. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.